The marathon is truly undergoing a revolution to the likes of which we have never seen before. And these past few months have been truly remarkable because we have seen magnificent performances both in the Berlin Marathon and in the Chicago Marathon, with Kipchoge winning on the men's side for the 5th time in Berlin, Tigist Assefa breaking the women's world record in Berlin, and then come this year's Chicago Marathon, we again saw Kelvin Kiptum do something remarkable, breaking the world record with a time of 2 hours and 35 seconds, and on the women's side, Sifan Hassan set the course record in 2 hours 13 minutes and 44 seconds, now ranking her as the second fastest female marathoner of all time. It's been pretty amazing to see all of these incredible races go down in such a short period of time, and it only continues the excitement over the 26.2 mile distance. But there's also another storyline that's been going on underneath these incredible times, and that is shoes, because believe me, we have certainly seen some incredible shoe drama go down over the past 5 or 6 seasons. However, I don't think we've seen anything like this. Now first, we need to go back to Berlin, where we saw the new Adidas Adios Pro Evo 1 make its international debut, and it had a day, because not only did Tigist Assefa wear these shoes to break the women's world record, we also saw various other athletes run incredible times using this shoe as well, including a new German record in just under 2 hours and 5 minutes. For a couple of weeks, these shoes were really viewed by many as potentially the next big thing in the marathon. For years and years, it seemed as though Nike had a stranglehold on the 26.2 mile distance with their carbon fiber shoes and so many other implementations that really pushed their greatness into the next level. But the Adios Pro Evo 1 really looked like it could be the next big thing. Well, that was until the 2023 Chicago Marathon went down, because for this race, on the men's and the women's side, Nike took a huge W. On the men's side, Kelvin Kiptum wore these brand new Nike Alpha Fly 3 prototypes, as you can see in this picture here. Now, just like the previous installments of the Nike Alpha Flies, these shoes come in at a relatively light weight, but they also have a streamlined bottom instead of the previous installments of the Nike Alpha Fly 2. They also have this propulsion bubble that you can see here, which is positioned slightly differently than the 2. And on the women's side, guess what happened? Yeah, Sifan Hassan was wearing these shoes as well. Of course, when we see such historic times like this, the company representing these athletes is going to say that their shoes had a big influence on the overall performance. And I'm sure that these shoes have somewhat of an influence, as they are pushing technology into new dimensions, but at the end of the day, the reality is that not everyone can strap on a pair of these shoes and throw down a world record performance. It just doesn't work like that. The athletes have to be in top form, the athletes have to have a great day, but at the end of the day, I think that Nike very well could showcase a huge comeback just after a few weeks' time, which is crazy to me because Nike has had a huge influence on the marathon. There is just no denying that. We've seen various outlets cover these shoes, including the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, even the Business Insider has looked at just how these shoes affect the marathon. And even though the Adidas shoe did showcase a pretty big W in this year's Berlin Marathon, it's also important to see Kipchoge's footwear in this race because he was also wearing the Nike Alpha Fly 3. From Kipchoge to Kiptum to Sifan Hassan all wearing these shoes, they just took 75% of the recent major marathon victories, and it was only Tigist Assefa that came out on top with the Adidas shoe. And it's also important to mention that in this year's Chicago Marathon, the second-placed athlete on the men's side was Benson Kipruto, who was last year's champion, and he was wearing these new Adios Pro Evo 1s, and his placement was about 3.5 minutes behind Kelvin Kiptum. I don't know if these shoes are in fact going to be the next gold standard, like we saw with the Nike Vaporflies and the Nike Alpha Flies, but I do think it's a real possibility. A lot of people are still very upset about these shoes, and they're saying that these shoes are taking away the integrity of the marathon. However, I must admit, I find these shoes extremely compelling, and I think this kind of technological advancement is overall a net positive for the sport. Yes, it is difficult to compare previous world records from the track to the roads to the current world records, and I do think that we perhaps should look at different categories because there is such a colossal difference between racing in super shoes on the roads especially to not racing in them. We have seen such massive leaps forward in marathon running over the previous decade, and super shoes have certainly influenced that overall trajectory. And I must also admit, I do think that these new Nike shoes take another step forward in a way that could potentially break the 2-hour barrier over the next few seasons, and if that does happen, I think Kelvin Kiptum will be the one to do it. And now I want to hear from all of you. What do you think about these new Nike shoes? What do you think about Nike's possibility in the market? And do you think these are overall the best Nike shoes in history? We've already seen many incredible times with these shoes, but it's also important to mention that these shoes are just reaching the market, so potentially they could showcase even more of an influence over the next 10 seasons. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, until next time.